kidnapped me. Lady Di, a Modern Fairytale by Slobodan Radojev. Mitrich Part 1 Love Chapter 7 The Grail ******** A few years after the resurrection of Christ, the Apostle Luke, together with a number of Christ's followers, climbed Ludgate Hill, situated in the centre of what is now London. He brought with him the cup in which Christ had poured wine during the Last Supper with his disciples, and with which the blood of Christ was collected at the crucifixion. After Christ has risen and shown himself to his disciples, the Apostle Luke hands him the cup filled with blood. Christ takes the cup and, holding it aloft, says a prayer. Then he gives the cup back to the Apostle. Luke accepts it gently and orders not to shed the blood of Christ, but the cup is empty. All the apostles are speechless. Christ smiles and says, "Luke, I am going now on to our Father. Keep this cup until I return. This sacred cup in you will serve as proof that all who believe in God and fulfill his commandments will become immortal. You, Luke, will live until I return. Even if it takes thousands of years on earth, your body will not age and nobody with you will grow old and die. I will not return until God's will is fulfilled. Then you and all your chosen ones will be granted eternal life, such as the angels and I have." The Apostle Luke, accompanied by a number of other disciples of Christ and Mary Magdalene, had come to this area because it was God's will. At the top of Ludgate Hill is an opening that leads deep underground to an enormously wide open cave. There the Apostle Luke placed the Holy Grail on top of a cliff, from where its night and day shining light penetrated the cave. Deep in this cave is a source of drinking water that flows through underground passageway further underground out into the Thames. The Apostle Luke gave directions to build a monastery on top of the divine underground cave in order to camouflage its entrance. However, immediately after the monastery was built, which the followers of Christ had named after the name of their teacher Jesus, it was demolished on orders of the Romans, who had occupied a large part of the biggest European island and who persecuted Christians all over Europe. Fortunately, the Romans did not discover the entrance to the underground cave. The ruin was spared. The Apostle Luke was then forced for some time to retreat with the followers of Christ to a different location. First they moved to what is now France and then to Serbia, where they had already lived before. The secret Vatican archives, which only the Pope and his trusted advisors are allowed to visit, clearly state that the Holy Grail was left behind under the ruins of the monastery of the Creator in the underground cave. In those archives it is also written that the Apostle Luke returned to the island at the beginning of the year 600, on top of the ruins of the monastery of the Creator on London's Ludgate Hill. He built a cathedral, which in reverence of the Creator he renamed St. Paul in order to divert the attention of the heathens. The construction of the new cathedral was completed in the year 604. The secret Vatican document reveals that the builders found the hidden entrance to the cave and laid eyes on the Holy Grail, but that their power of speech was immediately revoked and that they all became monks. And since everyone who beholds the Holy Grail is granted the power of eternal life, they could until now reveal this secret to no one. The new cathedral was damaged several times due to the hatred of the indigenous inhabitants of Europe's largest island against Christianity, who then were primitive faithless creatures dressed in leather and resembling the old Scandinavian Vikings. Although the Christians repeatedly renovated the cathedral, it was ultimately set aflame by the anti-Christians in the year 675. The English Christians did not give up, however, because living in their midst again was Christ's disciple, the Apostle Luke. And so they built at same place on London's Ludgate Hill a new cathedral. The large cathedral, which also bore the name of St. Paul, was plundered and demolished during the invasion of the Normans in the year 962. And for the second time the Apostle Luke and his companions had to leave the large island to return to the Balkans. But this time he takes the Holy Grail with him. In 1087, the Normans, in accordance with the spirit and architecture of national Norman Christianity, built a different, much higher church on the same site. But in order to entice the indigenous inhabitants of London into joining the non-Christian faith, they named the church St. Paul again. Be that as it may, it was the largest church in England, with the highest tower, its spire even extending beyond the clouds, and according to legend even higher than the Tower of Babel. But again, as written in the Vatican secret archives, this was not appreciated by the Creator of heaven and earth, and so God, with a thunderous lightning strike, destroyed the tower in 1561. Set in fire by the lightning bolt, everything burned down to the bottom of the church. When the fire threatened to incinerate the roof of the chapel as well, a nun named Frances ran out of the cathedral and knelt down on the floor, with her hands tearing her nun's dress in rags, revealing her full breasts, that no man had ever caressed. She looked up to the sky and shouted, "My God! Why?" At that moment a mysterious, smoothly shaven, beautiful tall man appears out of the darkness and steps up to her. Dressed in a white silk robe that gives light in the dark, the mysterious man covers her body with the broad white silk cloth. From underneath his white luminous robe he takes the Holy Grail, lifts it up and says a prayer in ancient Hebrew. The nun Frances, trembling with fear, only understands the word Rabbi. At that moment a heavy rainstorm bursts out above London, extinguishing the fire. The tower falls down on the other side of the chapel, so that not 1 inch from the roof of the chapel is damaged. The mysterious man puts the Holy Grail under his white silk robe. He offers the still kneeling nun Frances his hand and helps her to stand up. The mysterious figure lays his open hand on Frances' rain-soaked forehead. A seed planted in the ground dies in order to give birth to a new tree, which after birth will bear 1,000 similar fruits. He says, "Fear not. Heaven has accepted your prayer. You will, like the Creator, be killed by the godless to gain everlasting life." Then the unknown disappears in the dark, with the white silk cloth covering her bare breasts. Frances enters the church again and tells all that has just overcome her to the Mother Superior, who in turn passes it on to the Bishop of London. The religious wicked declare the nun Frances to be a wicked witch, accusing her of blasphemy. In a trial behind closed doors, she is sentenced to be secretly burned at the stake, so that the people will not declare her holy. With the flames seizing the body of Frances, her former colleagues, all the nuns and priests, mock her. "Pray to your saint now to also put out this fire." But Frances lifts her eyes up at the heavens and with the fire scorching her beautiful body, prays by herself to God to forgive them, for they know not what they do. The Catholic Church in London decreed that this case should never be made public, and as is the case with so many similar events on this planet, it also shoved this affair under its ungodly altar, affairs that slowly but surely encroach upon church after church and people after people, so that today there is almost no God's temple left where phony priests are not spiritually circumcised. What the London Catholic Church could not hide from the English population was that all the faithful realized that the lightning bolt that had struck down the highest English church tower was a warning from God to those who defile his temple and erect these high earthly towers to approach the Creator as close as physically possible and to remove the people as far as possible from faith in God, with the result that the people are all the more eagerly directing their prayers to heaven. The Londoners then decided that nobody could ever build a tower there again, and so it came about that St. Paul's Cathedral had to continue its life without a tower. In 1666, the year that the English know as the Year of Satan, a large fire broke out in London, covering almost the entire city, with dozens of churches burned. Only St. Paul's Cathedral remained intact. Anti-Christians, who already formed the majority in London's City Hall, were deeply touched by this event and decided to once and for all get rid of the, in their eyes, dangerous church. Despite the fact that St. Paul Cathedral was not in the least damaged, the city decided to demolish the building. Through this action, the anti-Christians wanted to forever hide the complete history of this holy site on Ludgate Hill. So they decided to build a new church there, of which the external and spiritual symbols should represent the infidels, but even that they were wrong. For this church, whoever builds it was, is and will always be God's temple. Especially since the Apostle Luke, who watches over the church and all the faithful on both major European islands, had returned to this part of the world. The Apostle visits Sir Christopher Wren in secret and commissions him to draw up a design for a church similar to the first original monastery that had the form of an Orthodox cross. In the year 1669, the architect Sir Christopher Wren submits his design to the London Assembly, but his design based on the Orthodox cross is immediately rejected by the English haters of Orthodox Christianity. Again on the advice of St. Luke, Sir Christopher Wren brings in the year 1673 improvements to the same design. But the City of London also refuses to accept that version because of the influence of Orthodox Christianity in the improved version. However, the Apostle Luke does not give way and dictates Sir Christopher Wren a new plan. In the year 1673, he has more luck. His third draft is accepted. And so in the year 1675 work began on the construction of the new Cathedral of St. Paul, whose round roof from the outside and inside will resemble the cathedral in heavenly Jerusalem. Of course, the anti-Christians do not realize that, and after a construction period of a full 35 years, the new Church of St. Paul opened officially in 1710 as London's cathedral. The Christians was proud of their new temple of God, but the cathedral was still a thorn in the eye of the wicked, especially anti-Christians, but also arch-enemies of the English people. Adolf Hitler, for example, the small moustached Führer, had a bad experience in St. Paul Cathedral during the time that he lived in England. A beautiful Germanic woman, who was there with her husband, a Swiss anthroposophist, had openly told him that it is not good during a church service to think about how to obtain God's Holy Grail through violent means. The anthroposophist added, "There is a different way, and that is faith in God." Hitler was surprised how it was possible that his countrymen could read his mind, because he had truly visited St. Paul's Cathedral with the intention to obtain, through whatever means, the sacred cup that grants eternal life. And this plan he had confided to no one. Because of the couple, Hitler stopped his evil plans at the time, although he was well informed that the Holy Grail was hidden somewhere in the cathedral. So, when Adolf Hitler became Führer and began the war against England, he gave an order to the Luftwaffe on October 9, 1940 to bomb a small town in England, where he used to live, and also the cathedral in order to destroy all traces of his quest for the Holy Grail in St. Paul's Cathedral in London, where he was unmasked by his countrymen. But again the heavens intervened, so that from the torrent of Nazi bombs only one fell on the cathedral, ricocheting off the roof and causing only minor damage to the Holy Church beside the cathedral. While in a circle of 200 yards around the cathedral everything was destroyed. The secret Vatican archives also document that Hitler had become afraid of God after he had viewed all the photos taken by the Luftwaffe that Feldmarschalk Göring had spread out in front of him on the table, saying, "Look, my beloved Führer, the heavens are against us, because you want to destroy the church where the Holy Grail is hidden in the temple of the Creator." After seeing those photos, Hitler stopped the bombing of St. Paul's Cathedral, where to this day the Anglican Bishop of London has his seat. ****.